My dear faithful, as we enter into the very, very heart of the Triduum of these celebrations and these liturgies that are presented for us, today we have the wonderful narration of the Passion of Jesus from John's Gospel, one who was present at the very end with Jesus, with his mother's sister, Mary Magdalene as well. And today, just as we see the suffering of Jesus, we realize that all suffering in a way has been sanctified, and not more than a way. All suffering now has been sanctified, and we keep in mind, especially at this liturgy and throughout our Easter season, so many people in our own communities, people even present here in our church, but especially throughout the world, who suffer such grievous difficulties from war and injustice and from lack of food and so many other aspects of being refugees and being driven from home. And we keep them in mind today. And we keep in mind the dignity of suffering itself that Christ sanctifies by his example for us. And we remember that in our hearts and allow that to be a moment of conversion for ourselves too, none of whom will ever be free from suffering at some stage in our lives, even to the very end. All week long we've been reflecting upon the dignity of the liturgy that Christ gives to his church and that the church presents for us. So many people who make these liturgies possible, and we thank them for that. But in the celebration of the liturgy, we represent, and the church represents, the saving actions of God in all their reality and in all their fruitfulness. And we reflected upon that on last Sunday and then through the week as well, and how important it is for us, after hearing this narration, to realize that that deep sense of reality of what's taken place is made new today, that Christ's suffering is present in our assembly here by the power of the church that is still present among us. And this is something given to us because its fruitfulness is still there for us to tap into, but to participate in the grace that is given to us in these liturgies. And when we see the events of this, full of so many images and so many realities of the mystery of Christ's salvation for us, we can just see a portion and touch a portion of those things each year when we celebrate this wonderful liturgy. And in this liturgy especially, the church is born. It's from the side of Christ the church teaches us that her source becomes the water and the blood that comes forth from Christ, symbolizing the two sacraments so fundamental to us of baptism and the Eucharist. And these are given to us by Christ in his sacrifice that we celebrated last night, and in the baptism which we will celebrate on Easter Vigil just in a few short days. And these are the gifts given to us. And since the beginning of our Lenten season, we've been preparing ourselves as a church and as individual souls to be recreated and reborn in Christ. And the church is reborn today in its conversion and in its purity, in being close to Christ and present with the one who is always present with us. And how stark it is for us to realize how few remain to be with him in his moment of suffering. And that's why it's so edifying for us here today to see so many people, but throughout the world, who celebrate this feast day. But how edifying that is, but how discouraging it must have been as well, as an aspect of his suffering, to see only his Blessed Mother, only his mother's sister, and Mary Magdalene and his beloved disciple present, who relates all these events to us. And even at the last sense, feeling the neglect and the disappearance of his Father as he yells out in his anguish. And this is the mystery of his suffering as well, the suffering of his soul that takes place, that marks all the suffering of every human soul from eternity and now even in the present age we live. These are the dignified, beautiful things we celebrate today, knowing that they lead to our salvation in the resurrection of Jesus, which will take place in a few short days and hours.